Okay, good evening. I'm so happy that you all were able to make it this evening. So my name is Lisa Whitmire. I'm one of the school counselors here at Mount Juliet High School. And tonight we're going to have the opportunity to talk to students and parents regarding the dual enrollment opportunities that we offer here at Mount Juliet. So I have representatives from Cumberland, MTSU, and Ball State who are that we work in conjunction with. So they're going to talk a little bit about each of their programs. And then I'm going to follow it up with some dual enrollment, some early college information as well. That is an opportunity that we do here at school. And then we'll kind of wrap it up with some questions. So I just want to start off by introducing our counselors that we have here at Mount Juliet, so that if you all have questions, you know who you can contact. So in the back, standing back there is Miss Kristen Wall. She has those that have the alphabet A through EM, as in Mary. She's new to us this year and is doing an excellent job. So she's one that you can talk to if that's your part of the alphabet. I have the EN, as in Nancy, through LAU, and then Miss Bergen, standing back there, has the next part of the alphabet, which is LAV through ROC. And then the end of the alphabet, we have Miss Barlow, and she has ROD through the rest of the alphabet, through Z. So those are our 4 counselors that we now have here at Mount Juliet. Like I said, we have representatives from all 3 schools. So I also have from Cumberland, I have Donna Hildebrand and Amy Pitts. Is that right?
Abby Pitts.
Okay, Abby Pitts. And then I have from MTSU, Casey Brown. And then from Ball State, I have Emily. Is it pronounced Daleen?
It's Deline.
Deline. Sorry, I'm gonna get it at some point. So I'm gonna have who's going to talk first? Amy? Okay. Donna's going to talk first regarding the Cumberland program. So,
all right. Thank y'all very much. I'm excited to be here. My name is Abby Pitts, and I'm actually the Director of Student Retention and Tennessee Promise Support at Cumberland. So, for all of our students at Cumberland, whether they're traditional undergrad, graduate, or early college and dual enrollment students, we do offer academic services to help with your student should they struggle in classes. We communicate early and often with our Associate Registrar, Donna Hildebrand. She is the point of contact for the high school guidance counselors at Mount Juliet. So if students are having any attendance problems or if they begin struggling in any of their classes early on, we reach out to Donna. Donna will reach out to your student's guidance counselor, and the effort and the attempt is to make sure that the student gets the help that they need early so they don't dig themselves into a hole. If you need additional, I'm going to talk briefly about our offerings at Cumberland as far as early college and dual enrollment go. If you would like to request additional information, including what we've discussed, scan the QR code and just fill out the brief Google form. It'll ask for parent or guardian's name, student's name, and what program you need information about. If for some reason you can't get the QR code to work, I've printed off a couple as well, so we can see you guys at the end. Wanted to talk briefly just about the courses that are offered. With both dual enrollment and early college, students can take their basic courses that they're going to need when they start college. That would include English, math, histories, sometimes they could do foreign languages, they can do social sciences, so anything that they would need to get a head start before they started college, okay? And what we would do is after your student applies to Cumberland and is accepted, you would work with your student, or the student will work with their high school guidance counselor to get registered. And the reason for doing that rather than working directly through Cumberland is we want to make sure that your student is not only meeting the Cumberland requirements, but absolutely want to make sure they're meeting their high school graduation requirements. So the guidance counselor will work directly with Donna Hildebrand, who's the associate registrar, and they will make sure your student actually gets registered for those classes. So as far as the delivery methods that we have available, your student can come directly to Cumberland if they would like to do so, or if the course that they want and need to take is offered online, that's an option as well. It's important to note that if your student is a Cumberland student, they will, for the classes that they're taking at Cumberland, need to meet the Cumberland calendar. So for example, Cumberland did not close the entire week of Thanksgiving this year. So if your student were to do dual enrollment, and it's probably the same for both MTSU and Ball State as well, if your student were to do dual enrollment through Cumberland, they would need to make sure they're meeting the Cumberland calendar, and then for their other classes that they're taking here at Mount Juliet, they would use the Wilson County Schools calendar. We have, and again, if you request information, we've got a checklist for you of all of the things that you and your student need to do at the application process, and then also as they're a returning dual enrollment student. So we try to make this as simple as we can, and that checklist will include contact information if you've got specific questions about courses or finances or anything like that. We can give you a checklist and walk you through that. I think the biggest thing to remember though is that in order to do dual enrollment through Cumberland, your student does have to apply to Cumberland and be accepted as a student at Cumberland. That's the first step. Once they apply, once they get accepted, then they can work with their guidance counselor to get registered for those classes. If your student is interested in early college is a way for students, depending on when they start, if they start their junior year, they can get, they have the opportunity to get an associate's degree at the same time that they graduate from high school. What they would need to do is definitely start their junior year, and the three options that we have at Cumberland for associate's degrees through early college are Associate of Arts in Business, and Associate of Arts in Education. A common misconception that many students have is if they're getting an Associate of Arts degree, they think that they're majoring in art, and that's not the case at all. So it's just going to be your generic associate's degree, basically the general education curriculum that your student would have to meet their freshman and sophomore year anyway. So that's their Englishes, their maths, history, science, social science. Some of those vary, but they are not, if they're getting an associate's degree, they're not going to have to major in art. So I like to clarify that with students. Another advantage that students have with the early college program is we actually offer our Foundations of Scholarship and Learning, which is basically a freshman seminar class. We offer that to the early college students. And so as they're kind of getting their feet under them and taking college classes, they're getting the same support structure in the classroom that they would get if they were a college freshman. So they're not going to miss out on that aspect of it by not taking their freshman year in college. I had the opportunity to teach that class this past semester, and I had a class of 28 early college students, and we taught things like study skills, time management skills, stress management. We taught some critical thinking, we did a debate, so just your basic orientation to college class that they'll get their junior year if they start their early college program then. What the benefit, to me the biggest benefit with either early college or dual enrollment is your student's getting a head start. Statistics show that your student will probably change their major on average 3 times or so during their time in college. So if they're taking their early college dual enrollment classes while they're in high school, that gives them a head start and gives them an opportunity to try a couple of different classes on Versailles as they're trying to decide what it is that they want to do. And so anytime they have that opportunity to do that, we encourage students to do that. I'm trying to make sure I've gotten everything covered. I think that's really the bulk of what I wanted to cover today. Donna and I will be available up front at the end if you have Cumberland specific questions, or again, just scan that QR code and we will email you guys and follow up with you tomorrow. And I guess Casey from MTSU is going to talk about their program now.
All right, thank you all for having me. Ms. Bergen, Ms. Barlow, if I just give you all a little signal as we go through, will that work? Perfect, thank you. My name is Casey Brown. I'm the program coordinator for dual enrollment at MTSU. This school year, 21-22, was our first year partnering with Mount Juliet, so I'm excited to be back again and talk to a new group of students about dual enrollment with MTSU. We had about 60 students from Mount Juliet take MTSU classes this fall semester, and so far it's been a great relationship. I'm looking forward to continuing that relationship. So I will go over briefly some of the information that we like to share with students, and a lot of this information you'll find is pretty common across institutions. There'll be some slight variances here and there, but for the most part, the general admissions information, the process of completing the dual enrollment application, whatnot, are going to be pretty similar. And just like Cumberland, I'll be here at the front for MTSU specific questions after. So why should you be doing this? You get a Head Start degree. It's an opportunity to experience college life, and you're going to accrue significant savings as we start thinking about the rising cost of college tuition. That's all you ever hear about, right? And dual enrollment is a great way to kind of neutralize that and get some credits under your belt at little to no cost to you. So the process to apply is pretty simple. Like with Cumberland, you apply for admission as an MTSU student. We've got the URL listed there, also available on our website as well. I'm going to just take this out so I can turn it low. You will apply for admission to MTSU online. You will send us your official high school transcript and test scores. We'll work with your counselor to get those from you. You will also complete and submit the dual enrollment consent form and the health history form, which is a hepatitis B meningitis acknowledgement form. You'll also send us a copy of your driver's license or birth certificate to the email address listed there. And finally, and most importantly, you'll complete the dual enrollment grant application through the state of Tennessee, which you can find in the TSAC student portal, and that's linked on our website as well. The dual enrollment grant is your primary source of funding to make sure that you're not paying tuition for these courses, so that's extremely important. What classes can you take? Well, again, like Cumberland, we have students dual enrolling with us in person on their high school campus, online, and at our MTSU campus. I believe all of our Mount Juliet students this year, except for maybe one or two, completed online courses, and that seems to be the preferred route that we go, but we are open to anything that you'd like to do. If you want to take classes on our campus, that's usually a conversation we have with you directly, individually, as well as your school counselor. But most of us are taking classes online through MTSU. Again, general degree requirements, we're talking English 1010 and 1020, so that's freshman comp 1 and 2. Math 1710 college algebra, 1530 statistics, 2010-2020 is US history 1 and 2. Economics, macroeconomics, psychology, and communications 2200, which is a speech class. These are all classes that are going to be general degree requirements no matter what your major is and pretty much no matter where you attend college after graduation. So these are all courses that are beneficial to you, and most of these courses do have minimum test score requirements to participate, either ACT, PSAT, pre-ACT, or the placement test that's offered through MTSU would be an option as well if you don't have an ACT score, if you haven't taken that test yet. So the big question is, how much is this going to cost you? And I like answering this one because usually it's good news. For most students, there's no out-of-pocket tuition cost. This is thanks to, again, the dual enrollment grant through the state of Tennessee, beginning spring 22. So beginning this upcoming semester, a significant change that occurred is that the dual enrollment grant will cover the entirety of a student's first 4 dual enrollment courses. So that would be 12 credit hours at no out-of-pocket tuition expense. Your only expenses with MTSU would be the application fee of $25, as well as any applicable textbook costs. The funding it can get complicated, but I'm going to try to make it as simple as I can. Just in general, you are eligible to receive this dual enrollment grant through the state of Tennessee if you meet our admissions requirements and you've lived in Tennessee for at least 1 year as a U.S. citizen or permanent resident. And there are also some situations where if you were on a specific visa, you can qualify for the grant as well. That would be a conversation we would have individually. The grant allows you to receive funding for up to 3 courses at a time, 3 courses in a given semester. If you want to take more than that in a given semester, you would be responsible for the full out-of-pocket tuition for the 4th course and beyond. After you've gone through your first 4 quote-unquote free classes, you can access your Hope Lottery funds early. For your 5th through 10th dual enrollment courses, you would receive $100 per credit hour or $300 per class. in most cases, which would leave you paying about $198 per class for classes 5 through 10. You do have to maintain a 2.75 GPA in your dual enrollment classes. Once you're admitted, we don't look at your high school GPA anymore. We're just looking at how you do in those college classes. 2.75 will allow you to continue to receive the grant in future semesters. And you've got to complete the application for the grant each academic year, each school year. As far as the cost outside of what the grant covers, there's a standard tuition rate across the state of Tennessee of $166 per credit hour for dual enrollment classes. So that works out to just under $500 for a college class. Again, the grant is designed to cover the first 4, but this is what you're being billed. And if you take beyond those 4, this is what you're going to look at on your tuition statement. Just to compare, this year, we were at $385 a credit hour or $11.55 for a 3-hour class, so significant savings, even beyond considering what the grant covers in terms of your tuition. And there's just an example for you. For courses 1 through 4, $498 grant, you wouldn't pay anything in tuition, and then courses 5 through 10, you would receive $300 per class, and that is deducted from the first semester of your Hope Lottery Scholarship freshman year. So, a couple things to think about. If you don't plan on using Hope, it maybe makes sense to take advantage of this. If you're going to school out of state, or you're taking advantage of Tennessee Promise, there are definitely ways you can maximize your funding opportunities by using this Hope money early. But if you're curious about whether or not it makes sense for you to do it, I'm happy to have a conversation with you individually and we can figure out what's going to work best for you. Other things I want to make sure that you know on here, our classes, like Cumberland's, operate on the MTSU schedule. So that means our courses are going to start later, usually around August 23rd, 24th, somewhere in there, depending on how the calendar falls. And they're going to end earlier. So we just turned in final grades for the fall semester. The semester ended the first week in December, and we had finals. So a little bit earlier, and the breaks are slightly different. There are deadlines for adding and dropping classes. Now, the way our scheduling works, you'll work with your counselor when you're scheduling classes for next year. You'll sign up for dual enrollment, and your counselors will share with me, actually, it's me that does it, will share your proposed dual enrollment schedule, and we actually register you for those classes. So once you've been admitted as a dual enrollment student, you've completed the grant application, your work is done as far as registration. We'll sign you up for the classes and work with you individually with any questions that you have. But there are deadlines for adding and dropping classes, and that's probably the number one thing I want to stress to you. As we work with students individually, you maybe are on the fence about doing dual enrollment, they change their mind. We want to be mindful of university deadlines to make sure that you're not going to incur any financial penalty from changing your mind or from making decisions. So we work with you individually on that. Other things to know, these classes count towards both your high school GPA and your MTSU GPA. I didn't necessarily say college GPA. And the reason for that is every institution is a little bit different in terms of whether or not, when you come in as a freshman, whether they just take your credits or they take your credits and your GPA. It does vary. So for example, if you were to come to MTSU after graduation, you would absolutely, the grades you made in these dual enrollment courses would have started your MTSU GPA. You'd already have a GPA with us. But some institutions may just bring over the credits. So that's something to keep in mind as you're kind of beginning your college search process as far as planning for what your academic record is going to look like. As I mentioned, yeah, some schools will count those grades, some don't. Dual enrollment courses never count towards your Hope Lottery GPA. That GPA you have to maintain to keep the lottery scholarship. I believe that's a 3.0 once you've gotten past that first sort of checkpoint. But these classes that you take as a dual enrollment student do not count towards your Hope Lottery GPA. You start with a clean slate as a freshman when you go to college on that. The other big question is about transferability. Those credits do transfer to the vast majority of institutions. I can't give you a blanket statement and say these credits will follow you everywhere you go, but 95% of the time, even if you don't attend MTSU, you will be able to take these credits with you. So I always tell students, as part of your college search process, look at the schools that you're considering applying to and find out what their policy is on transferring credits. Some are a little bit pickier than others. Same goes with AP credit in terms of what colleges want to accept. You can always look at university websites for transfer credit equivalencies. That's a very helpful tool. These are college courses taught by college faculty, our instructors. You are going to be expected to meet a higher standard academically, but you can do this. I do have this number. It's more like 91%, but we'll say 90% of students have an A or B average in their dual enrollment classes. What we find a lot of times is that if you're the kind of student who's sitting here and you're interested in this program, chances are you're going to be self-motivated enough to succeed in these courses. We do have also, for Mount Juliet students, since all of you do online for the most part, we're not going to put you in an online class, a massive online class with 300 students, other MTSU students. We have dual enrollment specific sections that are online college courses, but they are just for dual enrollment students at Mount Juliet and our other area high schools. And the instructor is aware that this is a dual enrollment class, so you're not going to get lost in a sea of undergraduate students at MTSU. We want to make sure that we're targeted to giving you the best possible experience. We do have free tutoring on our campus and online, access to our math lab and writing center. Our office is obviously a resource, and your instructor is going to be your best resource. We have wonderful instructors that have been doing dual enrollment for a while now. These are full-time faculty members, and they are familiar with the kind of unique situation that a dual enrollment student has taking college classes. You do get an MTSU student ID, access to our rec center, library. You can get a parking pass to park on campus. Admission to athletic events, concerts, plays, lectures, all of these things. We really want you to, you're only 45 minutes away, right? 45 minutes from my front door when I left this evening. We want to make sure you take full advantage of being a college student. You have all the same access and privileges as any student on our campus. And of course, those college student discounts, I always like to mention those. There are some fantastic discounts out there for college students that come along with being a dual enrollment student. Here's our contact info. You might want to snap a picture of that. And I've got cards of mine if you want to come see me after. But again, I want to wrap it up. But thank you for being here. And I look forward to maybe seeing some of y'all as dual enrollment students. And I will turn it over now to Emily from Ball State.
Hello, my name's Emily. I work at Ball State. I have a lot of the same information as what my colleagues have given, so I will try not to go too far into a lot of those same things. So some of these we might be skipping. We're at the very end of my presentation right now. Give me 1 second. Oh, some of those things are very small. Okay, you can go to the next slide. Okay, so again, we're really happy to be here as well. We also have students taking dual enrollment classes with us. Our students this year that are from Mount Juliet are doing online classes. We do offer options where the professors will come to the Mount Juliet campus and teach classes, but right now most of our students are also doing online. And the same thing, our classes will follow the Ball State calendar, so you just want to be aware of that. If you're planning trips or anything like that, you want to make sure that you're following what the Ball State calendar is and not necessarily your school calendar. So a lot of the same things that we've talked about, completing, your prerequisites that might be for a specific program that you're going into, getting a lot of those general education classes. You're going to have access to all of the resources that we offer, tutoring, all of our student services, career counseling, all of those things. And when you're taking our classes, it's just helping you to get some of those credits, make that transition hopefully from the high school into college easier for you. And again, like Casey said, lowering the cost of your college education after the fact. And we provide courses, like I said, in a variety of ways. We have face-to-face classes at our local high schools. We do online, and we also have some classes where you're able to come to the campus. But most of our students here will do online courses. The best thing is to speak with your counselor about getting those scheduled correctly for you. We do a lot of communication, the same thing as Casey said, we are actually the ones registering you, so once you have applied for your grant, you know what classes you want to take, kind of your work is done until you actually start that class. We're the ones who are registering you. And for us, so the requirements are always usually the same. You need to have at least a 3.0 GPA, but in order to take the classes without any type of exception, we want you to have a 3.6 GPA. The same thing, the ACT scores, otherwise you can take our AccuPlacer test with us as well. Same thing, kind of as what they've said. We can skip this one. Casey did a good job of talking about the fees, so I won't make you sit through that again. So the students are responsible for paying for textbooks, so the grant will cover the cost of, like you said, about 4 classes, but the cost of your textbooks, those materials, you want to make sure you're able to take care of those. We also have some books that are an automatic ebook. If that's something that you don't want to do, you would need to speak with our registrar to opt out of that. Otherwise, you're automatically going to be billed that amount for the ebook. If you do want like a physical copy of the book, that's an option you can work out with your counselor. We just need to know that. Otherwise, you're going to have that on your account. And you know, like it says up here, pricing for our textbooks is about $20 to $100 depending on what the professor requires. And you definitely want to apply for the grant. Using the grant, you can essentially get 4 free classes with the TSAT grant. We also have the GIVE grant as an option. And again, with your 5th class, you're going to start deducting from your HOPE scholarship. And this kind of reviews, but we don't need to go over all of that again. So we have a list up here. It's really hard to see, but we can send you links. I'm going to leave a bunch of my cards with Lisa. There is GIVE grant approved classes that are a different grant, but if you're interested in like business, nursing, mechatronics, early childhood education, we have certain classes that fall under the GIVE grant, and you can get funding for those classes that would maybe be different than like the typical general education classes that you're going to take. We also have some different options for financial aid assistance. If you are a Tennessee state employee, you can turn in a waiver, and there will be a fee waiver for your student. And then we have a deferred payment plan as well to pay in installments. So that's just something you can work out with our office as well. And again, very similar steps. We want you to apply to volunteer State Community College. Right when you go to our website, ballstate.edu, there's a link right at the top. It's a red link, and it's a free online application. You're going to make sure you fill out the dual enrollment / joint enrollment application. So you don't want to apply for a regular semester. You want to make sure you're applying for that dual enrollment application. And then we send an email within 48 hours to your email. That's going to give you your student ID number and then a link to be able to open your new email address, and that's where all of our communication will come from moving forward. So you're going to get information on filling out your parent forms and all the health forms that Casey talked about as well. You want to make sure you do those. Usually you get them within 2 days. And then you also want to make sure you complete the Tennessee Dual Enrollment Grant application. And then just make sure you're staying in regular contact with your counselor. Like Casey said, if you're taking classes with us, you're a college student, so we have expectations that you're going to be on top of things, making sure you know what you're doing. And then if you decide to attend Ball State when you graduate, you're going to get credit for all of those classes, but then you also have to go back in and apply again as a full-time student, not as a dual enrollment student. And then you would do, you know, the orientation with us, and if you do have any other credits from other schools, maybe you took Ball State dual enrollment classes, and then maybe you took MTSU dual enrollment classes, you can send those transcripts to us and we'll make sure you get credits for those. And then we also have a program, it's the Innovation Academy, and so this program, the costs are fully paid for by a grant, and we have a couple different programs. So there's a program, Applied Science in Business, Associate of Science in Pre-Nursing, Associate of Science in Pre-Healthcare, and then Associate of Applied Science in Vet Tech. So those are going to be very specific programs that you're going to enter into, and I think Lisa's going to talk about those a little bit more. But those would be able to go through where you can kind of get exactly those degrees if those are certain programs that you're interested in. That would be different from like the general education classes. And this is the contact information for our admissions office, because when you start that process with us, you're going to be working with them first, and then the dual enrollment information, I have cards, so I'll leave some with Lisa, so if you have any questions.
Okay, so I know it's very overwhelming. There's a whole lot of information. Now, of course, a lot of it's the same in terms of getting the students involved in dual enrollment. So each of these people will be here to help answer their specific questions for their schools. But there was something that was mentioned that I need you all to help get some information on. There's a thing that she mentioned at the very end that was called an innovation program through Wilson County. This is an application through Wilson County where students have the opportunity to go through that early college and get their associate's degree. But it is an application that's going to go through Wilson County, and only a certain number of students will get that program where Wilson County pays for it. But you can still do the program, just not within Wilson County, even if you don't get into it. So I know that was very confusing. Early college. It's an associate's degree in 2 years. Ball State mentioned that there was 4, which I only knew of 3, so I just saw that tech one I was not aware of. But there's a program, and so you would be meeting with me, even if it doesn't make any difference. You can talk to your counselor, but I am working with all of the students that are doing early college. But I can help answer hopefully some more questions regarding it. But in essence, in 2 years, they can finish up and get their associate's degree. And so like was already said, even if you don't get the money through Wilson County, let's just take the example of that grant money through HOPE and as well as the dual enrollment grant. So a student on average will take 5 classes a semester for 4 semesters. So that's a total of 20 classes. But the first 10 of them are going to be discounted because they can take up to 4 classes for free. Then they can start digging into their HOPE scholarship through classes 5 through 10. So after that, then they still continue, as long as they're in high school, still only paying that $498 a class for that second year. So they end up spending, I think it comes out to about $6,000. I think it was somewhere around $6,000, I think, by the time they get their associate's degree. Compared to, like we stated earlier, what, $1,100 a class times 60 hours? That's a whole lot of money that you are now saving. So if a student is walking out of here, we've got several students going to be walking out of here next year, because we start this innovation program this year, is the first year for it. So I've got all my juniors that are in it, that when they finish next year, they're going to walk out with their associate's degree in all of my chose pre-health in terms of Ball State. But at Cumberland also offers early college, and I think this is the one from Cumberland. They have 3 programs. No, I'm sorry, this is Ball State. The other one should be Cumberland. Change to the other one. So there's 3 of them through Cumberland. They put the same one twice. Okay, through Cumberland, there is a teaching one. There is, she mentioned it earlier, there's a business one, and then there's just an Associates of Arts one. that, again, you would get your 2 years, you get your gen eds done, you get your associate's degree, and then whenever you transfer somewhere else, you've already got an associate's degree to start with, and then you're finishing up your 4-year degree or starting to work, whatever you decide you want to do. But early college is a great opportunity for the students to get immersed in college courses. The biggest problem I have seen, or the biggest challenge we have seen, is that online opportunity. These students have to log in on their own, and they have to do it on their own. Guys, they're college students. They can't come to me, and I can't find out anything, and the parents can't log in and find out anything. It is on the student. That has probably been the biggest challenge that I think our students have struggled with, is especially with the online option, that they tend to not check things as much as they should, but once they become a student, they have to check their school email and our school email, because they're taking classes through 2 different schools. So that's probably the biggest thing on their court. In January, so I don't have any applications for this yet. My understanding is Wilson County is still working on the application process. But if somebody is interested in doing early college, then there's an application that's going to be opened up in January. We start meeting with all of our students in January. We start talking about course selections for next year. That's the reason why we wanted to do the dual enrollment meeting before we started meeting with everybody in January. So if a student has questions, to see their counselor, the counselor can help them explain how dual enrollment works, what they need to do, and then in January, when the application comes out for early college, if that's what they're interested in, they do need to make sure that they've taken the ACT. So if you'll listen, they talked about certain scores that they have in order to take classes. So they need to make sure that they take the ACT. Another thing, for the associate's degree, they need to make sure that there are certain classes that are taken here, that they're done by the end of their sophomore year, because, or the end of their junior year, if they're juniors and starting their senior year. The biggest thing is personal finance. Vol State doesn't offer personal finance, but it's a requirement to graduate from high school. Cumberland has it, but Vol State does not. And those are the only 2 schools that offer early college. The reason why MTSU does not is because they don't have an associate's program. They are just a 4-year university. So it's not that they're being left out. They don't offer an associate's degree, so therefore they're not part of the early college program. You can take as many classes as you want from there and still get halfway done in 2 years. I've got students that are doing that. I've got one student that is there full-time right now. So he is going to be, at the end of his senior year, going to be over halfway done with his classes already. So he's taking classes, he's just not going to have an associate's degree at the end, but he's basically doing early college without that part. Been meeting with the counselor to help you get in there, and then and if you need to email us, everything from here tonight is going to actually be posted. This whole thing is going to be posted on our website tomorrow. Hopefully get uploaded tomorrow. And you can always reach out to any of the counselors, and we will be able to help answer. Are there specific questions? I know that, again, I know we threw a lot of information out in a very short period of time, and I know some of it's the same information, but any specific questions you all have regarding dual enrollment? Yes, ma'am. They do not have to reapply to the school, but they always have to reapply for the dual enrollment grant. I think that's been a big misconception as well, that we always tell our students that they have to do the dual enrollment grant. They're like, well, I've already done it. But as Casey said a minute ago, they apply for the dual enrollment grant for this school year, and then they apply again for the next school year. But not for the college. Once you've applied to the school, you've applied to the school, so that part is there. Good question.
At Fall State, if they, for some reason, went a full year without taking classes, you would need to reapply. So say they took fall junior classes and then they're not taking anything again until senior year spring, then they would need to reapply, but only if there's been a full year in between.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. that's a great thing, because I do have 2 students that are in that process right now. So, most of the students typically will take 1 or 2 classes each semester, but there has been sometimes that there has been gaps, or they've changed from one school to another school. So if you change from one school to another school, you still have to apply to the new school as well. Other questions so far? Yes?
Is there a FAFSA application process?
Not for this. There is no FAFSA for this because you're not applying to the school. You're applying just for dual enrollment classes while you're still in high school.
So my daughter's a second semester junior. She didn't take any other courses her first semester. What does the GPA need to be for her to be approached to?
So the question is, it's a current junior who wants to take dual enrollment in the spring, and what's the requirements in there? It's just like everybody else that even starts in the fall. You still have to have that GPA of a 3.0. You still have to have the 21 on the ACT. If you don't meet certain requirements, they'll have you take a placement test on certain areas. So all the requirements are the same. If you do want to take something for the spring semester, again, go get with your school counselor very quickly so that we can get your application done and we can try to get that process going for the spring semester, because most of our students are already working on their schedules, and most of them already have their spring schedules for those that did dual enrollment this semester. Other questions?
So for a junior wants to take it for the spring semester, what's the average turnaround time? Is it like within a week that we hear, yes, the grant's been accepted, yes, they've been accepted to school? What's the time frame for that?
I think each school is a little bit different. I will say that unless it's something that I need to change differently. But if you know you want to take a class in the spring semester, you need to go to that. The sooner the better. Go to that school's website. Go ahead and apply. Let the school counselor know, because once we get that information that they've applied, they can go ahead and apply for the dual enrollment grant. And they need to make sure that it's for this school year for the dual enrollment grant. So it'd be for the 21-22 school year. You apply for the dual enrollment grant through TSAC, and you apply to the school. Let the school counselor know so they can meet with them and help them decide on classes. And then once we know that they're accepted from that school, they'll let us know, and then we can let them know what courses that you want to take. Good question. Any other questions so far? Yes.
So from a schedule standpoint, times of the classes, when are the classes typically offered?
Good question. So when are the classes typically offered? So if they're online, typically they are not a Zoom call, except with the exception of Cumberland. I will say that most of Cumberland's, they have both online as well as Zoom. So it's just looking at each class to see what the case may be. We work in conjunction with Cumberland, especially because they're the only ones that really have that are in person on Cumberland's campus. Most of our Ball State students do it online. Most of our MTSU students are online. If they're online, they typically log in sometime during the, whenever they can. It's not a set time that they have to log in. But Cumberland has both options. So it's just working with, like we're working with a couple of students at Cumberland right now that the schedule that they had doesn't work, so we're trying to figure out how to get them the schedule that works and also works here at Mount Juliet High School. So we do work with all that. That's the reason why we need to know as soon as possible so we can work on that. Other questions? Anything in particular for any of the schools that needs a question answered? Well, I appreciate you all coming in tonight. Like I said, if you need to, reach out to your counselor. If you've got certain questions, I think we'll be here for a few more minutes to help answer questions. And I thank you all for coming this evening.